Okay, today's video is about factoring completely. So we've already uh, learned about how to factoring out a GCF and how to factor when we find the factors of C that add up to B. Today we are going to put those two together and factor completely, and to do so we make sure that every attempt to factor is done and there's nothing else more to factor. So going through the model problem with each step, check to see if there is a GCF. If so, factor it out. So we notice here that A is 3, B is negative 21, and C is 30. We have a trinomial, and we notice that A is not 1. So we have to see first if we can factor out a greatest common factor. So we're going to factor the coefficients. So we can take 3, which our factors are 1 and 3, 21, which is 1 and 21, and 3 and 7, and 30, which is 1 times 30, 2 times 15, and 3 times 10. Now, one little trick here, the smallest integer, check to see if that is a factor of the other two integers. If it is, then 9 out of 10 times, that is the greatest common factor. If it is not, then you'll have to factor everything out. In our case, 3 is a prime number. The only factors are 1 in itself. So we check to see if 3 is a factor of each term, which it is. So our GCF so far is 3. We check to see if there's any variables that we can expand. We have x squared, so 2 x's. We have 1 x with the 21, and no x's with the 30. So x cannot be part of our GCF. So then we're going to divide and find our leftovers, our second factor, because GCF is our first factor. Second factor, when we divide, we get 3x squared divided by 3 is just x squared. Negative, we bring down the minus sign. 21x divided by 3 is 7x. So notice our leftovers is there with our set factors. And then bring down the plus sign. 30 divided by 3 is 10. Okay, so step number 1 is complete. Step number 2, we want to look at our second factor. Always look at the leftover factor and see, can I factor this further? In our case, we have a trinomial, and we want to see if we can find the factors of C that add up to B. A is 1, B is negative 7, and C is positive 10. So since C is positive and we have to add up to a negative number, all our factors are going to be negative. So negative 1, negative 10, negative 2, and negative 5. The factors of C, which is 10, that add up to negative 7, are negative 2 and negative 5. They multiply to give us 10, but they add up to give us negative 7. So now we can, we're gonna create our double binomials, and the only way to get x squared is x, and we pick up our factors, they're negative 2 and negative 5, and place them in our set. In our second position of our binomials. So step number 2 is complete. Then we want to write our factors side by side, remembering that we first had our GCF, so our GCF needs to be added to the front of our binomial set, and we have our final answer of 3 times x minus 2 times x minus 5. Take a second, pause the video, and try your check for understanding on your own. Okay, again, we want to find our greatest common factor. If looking at our GCF, we notice that 5 is our smallest integer. 5 goes into 40 and 45, so 5 is our GCF. There are no x's as part of our GCF because there is no x with 45, negative 45. Our leftovers, when we divide, we get x squared plus 8x minus 9. We want to find the factors of C that add up to B. The factors of negative 9 that add up to positive 8 are, 9 and negative 1. They multiply to give us negative 9, but add up to give us positive 8. So we have x plus 9 and x minus 1. And that is your final answer. Okay.